Welcome back to the class, everyone. We just got the news that we are getting additive drops here in a couple of days, and there is a lot to unpack, and more importantly, there's a lot of things that we need to know to get the most value out of this. So without further ado, let's get into it. So first off, before we actually get to the numbers, let's describe a little bit what we're talking about here. Here in a couple of days, and by the way, the dates on this are wrong. They got changed. I don't want to get into the whole story of why. But on October 20th, for your personal reset, we are going to get additive drops of Captain Rex on Hard LS battles, Jorgen on Mob battles, Nice on Heart Fleet battles, and Scout on Cantina battles. This is pretty darn important right now because these are the 4 specific marquee characters that are needed for Galactic Legend Leia. They do each kind of have some standalone viability. That's not really fair to Krex, but the others have pretty good standalone viability. Krex is amazing standalone viability in general, but the main thing is they're all needed for Leia, and sooner rather than later, we're going to be getting the much talked about Endor raid, and when that hits, Leia is going to be the best character for it. So there is a little bit of a time crunch, and these drops are going to help a lot of us, specifically me, who is missing all 4 of them, speed things up. So we do want to talk about the numbers and how we are going to get there. Before we do that, there was kind of an oopsie, for lack of a better term, on CG's part, and these events started really earlier than what was ideal. And when that happened is we got a good look at what the drop rates are. It looks like from this and several other screenshots that were taken from people who were already in the time zone to get the event when it was on the wrong date, it is now on the right date again. This will hit the 20th. You don't need to worry about this going on right now unless you're watching this video in a couple of days. The drop rate is about 3% per energy. What that means, 2 things. Number 1, that's good. That is very good. Typically, when we do these type of events, somewhere between 2 and 3 and 4, and 3 is a really good percent to be sitting at. The other thing that it means is that it's going to scale to energy. So it doesn't matter if you do a really expensive energy node or a really cheap one, like an 8 versus a 16 or a 20, you're gonna get the same amount of shards at the end of it just because of how the energy works out. Now, with that all being said, let's get to the numbers. I guess what we should talk about actually first is the value of each level of refresh. So for those of you who are unaware, and we talk about this a lot, so hopefully you're not unless you're super new to the channel, the best bang for your buck, the best value in the entirety of Galaxy of Heroes are energy refreshes. More specifically, the first 3 that you can do at the beginning of every single day. So Fleet, Mod, and normal energy will give you the opportunity to spend 50 crystals to get 120 extra energy each time, up to 3 times. That is the best value in the game. You want to do that every single day if you have the crystal income to do it. For Cantina, it's a little similar, but instead of 50s, it's going to be 100s, and those are just the best deals. That's how you progress quickly in the game. The reason why this matters is because when we look at our spreadsheet here, the same way that you're going to get everything else is also how you are going to get these specific characters as previously mentioned. So what we need to do is compare the character shards where you would buy them outside of energy, which would be shipments, and compare them how they would be inside of this new event. And I've already done all that math for you, so if you didn't understand anything we just said, just listen to the following words. You want, if you have the crystal income, you want to go all the way through the 200s with every single type of energy. That includes Cantina, Mod, Fleet, and Normal. That will get you the most bang for your buck. It is significantly cheaper than going and buying these characters through shipments if that was something you were going to do anyways. So as you can see here, if you're spending the 200 crystal refresh 3 times, you're getting about 10 shards. The formula for that was this amount of energy times 0.3. That's how we got that number. And then of course, 600 crystals is less than 806, meaning it's a better deal. So do not go into the 400s with any of the energies. It's kind of a waste. You'd be better off just going into shipments and buying them themselves. Now, there are a few caveats that have to be mentioned here, especially when it comes to Krex and Nisa's drops, because they are not on every single node. What I mean by that, and this is going to be a little confusing because this has been different throughout time, you can't just go for Krex, you can't just go to any light side battle and pick one and sim it and expect to get drops. You can't do that. He is going to, at least right now, specifically to hard nodes. This makes things complicated for 2 reasons. Number 1, most of us don't have a lot of hard nodes that are going after Leia, so it's not the great time. If you do, that's awesome. Take advantage of this. Not only do you get the rec shards, but you get maybe something you were going to work on not too long from now. The other issue with this is there aren't any chirotechs on the 20 energies, and for a lot of us, including myself, that's what I need. That's what I have to go after. So that does affect the numbers a little bit. So you need to take that into consideration once we get to the questions at the very end. So yes, will you get good value on the rec shards when this is all done if you go through the 200s? But if you don't have all that many hard nodes, it might be considering scaling back depending on what you're trying to do. Again, we'll have some kind of information towards the end of the video explaining why you shouldn't go after it. So again, 200 is what we want to do. With that being said, another point that I wanted to mention earlier, but without context, it would have been a little bit hard. Should you be hoarding for this? I am recording this video right now on October 10th or October 18th here in the United States. I'll release this video as soon as I can. And that means that we have an opportunity tomorrow on the 19th to do all of our refreshes and hoard them and keep them into the following day. Now, Mod and Fleet are capped out at 1,000, so that's the most we can do. Cantina, we just really can't accumulate that much energy because the refreshes get very expensive very quickly. In fact, the 200 refreshes, they only allow you to do 2 of them instead of 3 for some really weird reason. So this is really the most on average energy you're going to be able to hoard for the event coming into it, and this is how it's going to translate to the amount of shards. And the reason why you want to do this is because if you do the 50s, the 100s, and the 200s and sit on it and wait for the day to roll over, it's still really good value because these are the most shards that you can actually get from this event. For Krex, you can only get 209. Assuming you're going for peak value, you can get more, but at that point you should be doing shipments instead. Nisa, as well as our good friend Drogon, you can only get about 185, which is still, that's a huge number. That's more than half, I believe. And then 114 for Scout. Scout actually is the most capped on this just because the Cantina energy refreshes get very expensive very quickly, assuming she has the same drop rate that the others do. So with that all taken into consideration, we need to start asking ourselves a variety of questions. Okay, so we know the 200s are good on all of them. Check. I know that I should be hoarding as much as I can on the 19th. At least with normal energy, that has a cap of 2,000, and the fleet has 1,000. Then Cantina, you can only do so much. Now, what are the questions? Number 1, or I guess number 0. Do you have the crystals? Not only do you have the crystals, but do you have the crystal income to be able to do this? And for a lot of people out there, this might mean dropping some cash on some packs, or not packs, but on some crystals. Or you may kind of be like me and have a very specific Jar Jar fund for a rainy day such as this. I'm kind of prepared. I won't have to do all these, but that kind of has to get to the next point. So if you don't have the crystals, you really do need to pick and choose what you want to do here. If you're not going after Leia, maybe you just do Krex to bump up your Phoenix team. If you literally have no crystals at all, maybe you just kind of thank the fact that you're still getting something even while doing no refreshes. Next question you need to ask yourself, is Leia important to you? Because if she is, this is about the best deal that we're going to be getting for the next year. All these numbers are going to still be relevant for this event until all the characters we talked about hit double drops, which quite frankly, as very new marquee characters, they're far away from that. They're not going to hit that cadence for quite a while. The next question, and this one's really important, you're going to each have to do this on your own. Do these time out correctly? And what I mean by that is if we go into my roster specifically and we look at these 4 characters, you'll notice all of them are at different points. My Krex, he is at 6 stars. My Nisa is at 5 stars. My Scout is at 4 stars. And my Drogon is at less, kind of less than 4 stars. So it doesn't, basically what I'm getting at, it doesn't really make that much sense to me to go all in on Krex, get my 70 or 200 whatever shards, if Scout is really capped here. I'm about 200 shards away from Scout. So if I go ahead and open our handy dandy spreadsheet back up and I realize that I can only really get 114 from this at most, then there's not a huge motivation to actually go in all on a Krex. In fact, I might not do anything more than the 50s or the 100s just because I'm trying to time these characters at the same time so I don't end up burning resources unnecessarily. Now, Krex is kind of a bad character example because of question number 4, does the character stand alone? And he does. And what I mean by that is, should you go after this character, or should you try to accelerate this character even if you aren't getting Leia? So again, these are questions everyone needs to be asking themselves to see what is the right thing for you to do. Do you have the crystals? Is Leia important to you? If she is, do these time out correctly. If she isn't, does the character stand alone? And the last question, this was kind of mentioned in the very beginning, will you farm them in under a year? Because if you're just at a point where, like, you just got Star Killer and you're super excited you got Star Killer, and that's great. I don't want to poop on your parade or anything. But if Leia and the raid and all that stuff is just miles and miles and miles away from you, you probably don't really want to do any of this. I mean, maybe accelerate Krex a little bit because he's great with Phoenix, and Phoenix are fairly accessible. But for the most part, like, I don't think Drogon or Scout are really that valuable if you were years away from Leia as it stands right now. So, oh, and I did put this here, and I thought about doing a better breakdown, but just to give you an idea how many crystals you need, if you are doing literally everything every single day for all 4 days, this is how much it's going to cost you in the end, which is a pretty penny. You also do the math on your own to figure out what is the exact combo for you. If you only need to do the 100s with Rex to be able to top them off, if you only need to do the 50s with Drogon for whatever reason, if you only need to do the 200s with Scout, you'll have to kind of figure out how that all is going to work for you personally. But again, kind of tying everything up here, yes, you should hoard the day before as much as you can with the amount of energy that you can up to the 200s. During the event, if you have the crystals, go through the 200s, not just on normal energy, mod, fleet, as well as Cantina. Again, remember that Krex and Nissa are specifically for hard nodes, so if you don't have that hard nodes, you are going to take a hit in another way because you're not going to be able to farm Kairos, so that should affect your decision a little bit. And ultimately, if you just want to finish the farms, go back to shipments after this point. Do not go into the 400s. It's not a good deal, just with how all the math works out. But thank you guys for watching. Let me know if you guys have any comments, and as always, stay awesome.